This video, after briefly acquainting you with the idea that the practice of law begins with your first days of law school, laying a foundation for the professional practice in years to come, introduces the topic of managing your study time in the most efficient and effective manner. Let's take a look at this segment of how to achieve your personal best in law school.
Wasn't college great? The academic aspects and so much more. I loved I loved parts of college. Now you're in law school. It's entirely different. Instead of looking at law school as merely an extension of your collegiate career, look at it as the beginning of your career practicing law. Of course, you're not a professional lawyer right now. That's not the kind of practice I mean exactly. I'm talking about practicing the things that you will be doing as a lawyer. You see, excellent law students become excellent lawyers. And one of the reasons is because those excellent law students have been practicing the things that they need to do as lawyers. Do as lawyers? Yes. Not just know as lawyers, but do as lawyers. In fact, believe it or not, law school can help you become a lawyer, a good lawyer, not just a person who has learned lots of laws. Let me present you with a hypothetical situation to illustrate what I'm talking about. Let's just say you have been arrested. Now, we all know, you never will be, but this is a hypothetical. Let's say also that you are innocent, but you are looking at a potential state prison stretch of 20 years. Let's say you want to hire a lawyer. You would like your lawyer, no doubt, to handle your case with passion. Like, it means a lot to her that you win your case, that you be acquitted. B, on the slide here, you don't want your lawyer to approach it as if it's just a job. She puts in her hours, sits behind that counsel table with you. The day in court is over at 5 o'clock. She goes out to have her martini and get on home and do whatever and be back in court tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock. It's a job. No, I don't think so. I think you would like your lawyer to be different than that and to have an attitude. And the attitude will not be, I hope I survive this trial, but rather, I'm going to do my personal best and win. You'll also hope, no doubt, that your lawyer is in the best physical, mental, emotional shape of her life when she starts your trial. What you don't hope is that your lawyer is in the worst shape of her life, emotionally, physically, mentally, spiritually, whatever. So what I am suggesting to you now is that you now start becoming the lawyer that you would hire if you had to hire a lawyer. Start practicing now. What do we mean by practice? Well, practice is the continued repetition of an activity or a skill that eventually you would like to perfect. So how does one take control? Well, in law school, it's just like it is in other parts of life. You establish objectives and you make those objectives very precise and quantifiable, meaning with numbers. Divide the objectives into the components that you have learned or will learn. We'll talk about a little bit. And then you establish a critical path, that is a sensible order to do the things. You don't paint the house before you put up the walls. You have to do things in order. And then the last item of taking control, of course, is to commit to the self-discipline to get the job done. So how do you establish objectives? Well, in law school, let's look at how you would do that. You look at your objectives for the long term, for the semester, and then you use your syllabus, etc., for dates that are important within the class you're talking about, like contracts, for example. When is your paper in contracts due, or when is your midterm in contracts going to happen? Then you break that further down into short-term objectives. So you'll have components, and again, we'll talk about that, that are on the way to your ultimate objectives in each class at the end of the semester. Now, within your budget, just as with money, you need to calculate how much time you will be managing. Well, let's do that. Look, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 168 hours a week. We all have the same. It doesn't change for any of us. Now, subtract the essentials, and again, your numbers will be different, but not too different. Look at this. Sleeping 7 days a week, 7 hours. Eating, well, you've got it. Just look at the slide all the way down there. Attending class, I put in 14 credits. Maybe you'll have 12 or 16. Then those other things you need to do, like shopping and laundering, etc. And your total for all of that comes out 103. Now, you know what you have to work with. So let's figure out what you need to spend. What do you have to work with? Well, what I mean is you have 168 hours total, and you've just spent 103 of them on those things in life that you have to do. In the book, 1,000 Days to the Bar, but the Practice of Law Begins Now, I talk about what I call the components of assessment targeted study. Whether you've read about that or not, I'll be referring to those components of assessment targeted study, which I abbreviate CATS, as we go through the next couple of slides, because it's important to understand that the study of law in law school can be broken into discrete parts. And that's what I refer to as the components. The discrete parts that I'm going to talk about today as part of the time management concept are the reading and briefing, reading of court opinions and briefing court opinions, preparing your personal course summary of your course, and practicing answering different types of questions, which is a very key component for your studying. So you'll understand now when the slides come up about breaking your study up into those components what I'm talking about a bit. So we talked about an objective as an example, doing your best on the contracts exam that's coming up. So divide into components, if you will, what you need to do or what skills you need to sharpen in order to be able to do that. And let's look at those bullet points. You need to become totally fluent in the language of contract law. You know all those terms, etc. You need to know every element of every issue studied. You'll study issues like an offer and in a contract setting. And the offer, in order to qualify as an offer in contract law, it will have several components. You need to be a whiz at analyzing, that is, applying those laws, those rules, to the facts that you're given in a hypothetical exam for an essay question. You need to be completely comfortable during a contracts exam, not become agitated, anxious, frustrated. After you've filled in those time rectangles for what seems to work for you, what you were comfortable with, at least at the outset, not that you can't change it, but notice where you see those little cats. Those are the components of assessment targeted study that you'll be doing. And notice the green parts, that's everything else: breakfast, exercise, dinner, whatever else you're going to be doing during that time. And balance it. Look at how this particular example works out. It's got you sleeping 56 hours. That's 7 nights, 8 hours a night. Class hours are at 14. That's your class load that you're taking. Yours may be more or less. Your study hours, in this example, are 42. And your other parts of life are 56. So when you add your class hours and your study hours together, you'll see you get 56. That is balanced. Sleep hours, 56. Time devoted to class and law study, 56. Time devoted to all of those other parts of your life, 56. That's 168 hours. That's your week. Of course, every one of the concepts that has been presented in this short video is important. What is the most important? Well, I think making the decision to get control of your time, your life as it relates to law school and studying. What you are attempting to do is to find the most efficient, the most effective method of using that time, those 168 hours that we all have during the week, so that you can turn out to be the best law student that you can be. Perhaps the most important of all of these, after you've made that determination, that decision to do what it takes and stick to it with respect to scheduling your time, perhaps the most important is being able to break up your study into discrete individual components so that you cover all the bases.
You'll notice that there are two distinct aspects to consider. Balancing your life so that you maintain your health and well-being, then, with the 1/3 of your time that you devote to law school, balancing the components of assessment-targeted study so that you cover all the bases each week. Don't forget to adjust your schedule each week. This is for two reasons. First, your personal circumstances are bound to change from time to time. Second, you will find that some of your study components take more or less time than you initially thought. If you have questions about this, feel free to contact Professor Tunzing at the email address you'll see on the screen. Remember, from the day you begin law school, you have about 1,000 days until you take the bar examination. But the practice of law begins now.